Alright, another Talking Reds, Thursday's Talking Reds. Me, Gareth Roberts, joined by Paul Cope today. New to Talking Reds, but not new to the Anfield Wrap. A regular on the review show and on ProView, and also a regular writer on the site every week on there. If you're not reading them, what are you up to? Nice, often controversial views, which I love because it means I can argue with people on Facebook. It's what it's all about, isn't it, mate? You know what I mean? Okay, so first off, we'll get into stuff about the Reds, and then we'll have a look at the papers. The usual dance, really. The Reds, first off, there's some news about Daniel Sturridge today, and that is that he could play against West Brom in the FA Cup on Saturday night. Reason being that the move to Inter Milan isn't happening. Liverpool had agreed for Inter to pay his wages for the rest of the season, a loan fee of around £2 million. No sort of clause for them to sign him at the end of that, but Liverpool seemed happy enough with that. The player, though, apparently Daniel prefers a move to Seville, easy for me to say, but that's not happening as yet because they haven't put any actual terms on the table. So as it is, he remains a Liverpool player. Apparently he's looked really sharp in training this week, and according to James Pearce in the Echo today, he is desperate to play. He hasn't played a game since December the 6th for Liverpool due to illness and hamstring. So yeah, possibility of Sturridge turning out for the Reds on Saturday night against West Brom. I reckon most Reds didn't see that coming, but at the same time, easy enough to embrace. He's, still got the ability, if not, the fitness.
Yeah, well, the fact he's available to play is a surprise in itself, isn't it? And I think that just says everything you need to know about Daniel Sturridge. The fact he could play for Liverpool at home to West Brom in the Cup, I'm a bit like, oh right, I didn't expect that. But yeah, like I suppose a game like this is perfect for him to a certain extent because of the way they'll approach the game. And I think you naturally, when you've got players like Sturridge missing, I heard a few. I think Adam Melia said it on the post-match show after Swansea. Oh, we could have had Sturridge in that game, or he'd have taken that chance, or whatever. I think there's still an element of us sort of hanging on our memories of Daniel Sturridge, and he's not. I think we've all reached the point where we sort of accept he's not the player he was, and if he leaves, he leaves. But it'd be nice to see. I feel like I've said this like 1,000 times. It'd be nice to see him go out on a high. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Go and bang a hat-trick against West Brom and show us some wiggly arms and all that. And
I mean, there was always the debate around them, wasn't there, about him really getting a proper song and stuff like that, and about some fans not being sort of sold on his attitude and all this sort of stuff, and some really, frankly, awful stuff about him being lazy. He was never lazy in a Liverpool shirt for me. That was absolute bollocks. You look at his record, 63 goals in 133 appearances for Liverpool. Only £12 million as well from Chelsea 5 years ago. I think, despite all the injuries, despite the problems, he's been value for money. And just for the season alone, where him and Suarez banged so many goals and we come so close, I think he's proved to be, a decent enough sign, and I guess there will be a little bit of sadness on both sides when he goes.
Yeah, I think it's a case of what could have been, isn't it, with Sturridge? Did you say he's only 28?
Yeah.
Like even that surprises me. Do you know what I mean? He feels like he's been around for ages, and he feels like he should be a bit older than that, and he should be in his latter years now. But he should really be in his prime, and I think that's the sad thing. And I've been saying for a while. Neil and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. We were saying, considering the bottom half of the table in the Premier League all need goals, I'd be amazed if any of them wanted them, and I wouldn't recommend any of them take him, because the Daniel Sturridge we have now is not the Daniel Sturridge that used to exist. And even when he's playing well for us, he's dropping into midfield, and he's taking nice touches, and he's doing Cruyff turns, and he's opening up play. And I just imagine him playing for West Brom when they'd be better off with Danny Ings running around, charging people down, the crowd gets on their feet. No one in this league below the top 4 or 5 would benefit from a Daniel Sturridge in his current form. You've
got to sort of play for him, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Almost. I mean, he's still a brilliant finisher. I think we saw that, was it West Ham away, where he just finishes it so naturally. He's always going to have that in his locker. It's what else he can do, and he isn't now suited to Klopp's setup, really, is he? When you look at the work rate of Firmino, in comparison, there is no comparison.
Well, and that's why Solanke's jumped above him in the pecking order, even when they were fit. Like he would opt for Solanke because he gives him that, and I've said for a long time he doesn't come across as a Klopp type player, and I think there's very few things these days that Liverpool fans seem to agree on, but I'm guessing we'd all pretty much agree that he'd be great in Spain or Italy. And I can understand why he'd want to go to Seville. It'd be a nice place to live and all that, spend a few years out there.
Was a lovely place.
If I was him, I'm not sure why. It will be interesting to see whether if Sevilla don't come in for him properly, will he turn down Inter? Because Inter is still a good side. It's, you know, they're a legendary club and big city and all the rest.
And they've only got a week left here to, you know, on all sides really to sort out transfers. There's only a week to go. It doesn't really look like Liverpool are going to do any business at this stage. You know, still some chat around Lamar and things like that, but there's no new names. That you know, there's a lad signing. We think from Falkirk, but you know, he's an 18-year-old lad. It's a development sign, and it's not someone who's going in the first team. It's not one you're all going to get really excited about.
I think on that point, it's worth saying that if we do sell him, and on the point about Coutinho and the stuff we've been banging on about, I've defended FSG in the past and been accused, as we all have, of being in John Henry's pocket and all that.
FSG sympathiser.
My uncle John.
John Henry's coming in a bit, just dropping off the weekly payments for being nice about him. Can't wait for that, I'm skint.
Well, you might as well be mates with a hedge fund manager, mightn't you? He's got a few quid.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, so we get criticised for that, but I genuinely think that they're a good set of owners, generally speaking, in the context of owners, you know, worldwide. And who do you get who's better than them? My philosophy I've put in an article of the week is, if you can upgrade, doesn't matter who it is. If you can get a better striker than Firmino, get a better one. If you get a better manager than Klopp, same applies to the owners. But unless and until we can get that, I think they're all right. The problem they've got with this is, everyone's saying there's £142 million sitting in your bank account, which may or may not be true. That, you know, whatever the instalments were, whatever, but they've at least got 100 million there. And if they sell Sturridge off the back of selling Coutinho and we don't buy anyone else, I can imagine there being just, you know,
there'll be a
backlash.
Yeah, there'll be a backlash because we're in a good place. We keep saying this over and over on the podcast, on here. You know, we're in a good place right now. Top 4, last 16 of Champions League, in the FA Cup still, and to take 2 players away from the squad who can potentially win your football games, that isn't going to go down well, and rightly so. I mean, what's the quote from Dalglish from a long time ago where he says, you know, Liverpool fans want to see players on the pitch, not money in the bank, and I think that always applies. It applies to any club, any set of fans. You want to see the owners investing in the team, going all out, trying to win things, and Liverpool are in a good position to win things this season. Never mind develop them for another season. We're all desperate to see them win now. We're bored of not winning things.
Yeah. We were talking off air about this, and I'm seeing a lot of this around at the moment, and I couldn't agree with it more. People saying, I'm sick of hearing, well, next season will be great. We're going to get these lads in, and then next season will be fantastic. And I know the fans of other clubs will think this is mental, but I genuinely think we've got a crack at winning the Champions League. And the bench on Monday night with Danny Ings coming off, and I'm a Danny Ings fan, but we're in the Champions League quarter-final, semi-final against Barcelona or Real Madrid or a final even, and you're pulling Danny Ings off to try and win it. And I know people come back and say, well, we did it in 2005. Like, that was such a freak occurrence. We
had some quality players. I mean, everyone points to like Traore and Biscan, but we also had Gerrard and Carragher and 100%. Alonso.
But we still got through some games with him, Pongo and Mellor and Latalik and that, which I don't think is easy to replicate, is the reality. And I suppose the summary is, are we more likely to win a game in the Champions League with Lamar coming off the bench or Danny Ings coming off the bench? It speaks for itself, doesn't it? No matter how good Lamar is, like, he might not be a long-term signing, but I don't really care. If we spend, this is my big thing on like Mahrez, and this is the bit where the Klopp philosophy I don't really agree with, is if we spend 50 million quid on Mahrez and it turns out he's not that good and we sell him in a year for 30 million, I don't care. I just don't care. Like, so what? He might score a goal in that time. He might win us something.
He might get us in top 4 again.
Yeah.
He might win us a semi-final of a European Cup.
Exactly.
Who knows? I know what you mean. I kind of think they should take a little bit of a gamble on this one, but it doesn't seem to be the Jurgen Klopp way. And yeah, I agree with you. There will be endless arguments on the manager, on the owners. If this window closes and Sturridge goes and Coutinho's gone and we don't get anyone else in, that will just be a fact of life. But before all that, there is the FA Cup match on Saturday against West Brom, 7:45, under the lights, one to get up for. Little bits of news around that. Albi Moreno still feeling his ankle injury, unlikely to be risked, it seems, which is a bit of a shame. I think he would have played in that one. Also as well, a piece from James Pearce today in the Echo, which I fully agreed with. He's basically saying Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool could do with a bit of a run in the FA Cup. They could obviously do with winning the thing as well, but a bit of a run would be nice as well either way, because they went out in the 4th round to West Ham after a replay, Klopp's real sort of first crack at the FA Cup. Last season lost to Wolves at Anfield, which was obviously disappointing, and in 9 of the last 11 seasons now, the Reds haven't got past the last 16 in the competition, which really isn't good enough. So Liverpool need to get a bit better at that. There is still some concerns following beating Swansea, but something I had a look at yesterday and wrote a piece on it. It's just Liverpool's, what Ian Darby once called, bounce back ability. So when they get beat, what happens next? And under Klopp, it's a pretty good picture, really. The longest run of defeats is 3 since he's been in charge. Took over in October 2015, is that right? Mm-hmm. And that was Swansea in the league, Southampton in the League Cup, and Wolves in the FA Cup, which I just mentioned. That was that nightmare January sequence. The only other back-to-back defeats that I can find, Villarreal away and Swansea City away. He did, of course, rest players in that Swansea game for the second leg against Villarreal, which we then won 3-0. So no one was too concerned about that, really. So the results, other than those 2 sequences I mentioned, after a defeat, Liverpool have won 12, and they've drawn 7. So they've always sort of bounced back. There's you know, the players have responded, the manager's got it right, whatever. Behind the scenes, it seems that they've sorted out a reaction to being defeated. They haven't got too down about it. So I think it's fair enough that we sort of expect something similar on Saturday against West Brom.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's one of the positives of having a manager like Klopp, isn't it? That there is, and I've mentioned in the past, there's certain downsides of having a really emotional manager. But I think one of the things and sort of away from the game where he's so emotional and sort of hyper aggressive, I think he's quite a philosophical character, and that you see that sort of in the way he can turn sides around from being beaten to coming back, because he'll just remind them of what they're all meant to be doing. And we were talking before about the last time we all felt this low after a game was Spurs away, and there was just some horrendous moments in that game. I think it was a little bit different actually in the fact that if we talked about this on the review with Sean and Neil, that if you took that game and took out the mistakes for the goals, it actually wasn't that bad a performance, whereas this performance was quite bad, which is a slightly different problem for me to get into. But if you'd have said to us all then, I'm sure we wouldn't have even thought, if you'd have said to everyone we're going to go on an 18-game unbeaten run after that match, and it would end with beating Man City at home in one of the best games you'll see, I just don't think any of us would have believed it, would we? So what he's got now is, and I think this is one of the things for elite coaches and muscle memory, and Guardiola talks about this, is that you constantly learn from experiences. So we can literally go to them now. Well, remember last time you played, like you had a big game like this, you went on an 18-match unbeaten run, so let's do that, because that effectively takes us to the end of the league season.
You scored 55 goals in that run, you conceded, I think it was 16, you kept 8 clean sheets. You know, an 18-game unbeaten run is not to be sniffed at, and it's worth remembering as well that the season before they had a 15-game unbeaten run there as well. So he's doing something right. There are signs of progress. I understand the frustration, but at the same time, I think we should be positive going into this weekend, and we can smash West Brom, and we can get our season back on track, and we can go on another run, because it's happened before, it can happen again, as you say, Kofi. A bit of Lazar Markovic news as well, the strange case of Lazar Markovic. Lokomotiv Moscow and Spartak Moscow both said to be interested in the player, West Brom also. And when you start to pull the facts and figures on Markovic, it's just weird, to be honest. I mean, it's one of them where you feel there's so much more to this story behind the scenes. You're like, I don't know what he's like as a person. I don't know how hard he works in training. I don't know how he gets on with his teammates. But it's pretty damning when you look at some of this. He's still only 23 years old. He's in his final 18 months of a seemingly never-ending contract. He cost 20 million quid from Benfica in July 2014, which seems an awful long time ago, for nearly 4 years, obviously. He scored 3 goals in 34 appearances in the 2014-15 season, but he hasn't played for the Reds since we beat QPR in May 2015. It's 2018, and he's just been knocking around, doing keepy-ups at Melwood and getting paid a fortune. He's had loan spells at Fenerbahce, Sporting Lisbon and Hull City. Hull apparently fancied signing him, but then they went down and couldn't afford it. Liverpool said to be asking around 16 million quid for him. And the last time he was seen in Liverpool gear or anything, unless you're looking at pictures of training, he was an unused sub for the League Cup tie at Leicester, when we lost, of course. But he hasn't been in the matchday squad since. It is a mad one, this, isn't it? I mean, you know, I remember everyone going mad about Rodgers playing him out of position. I remember he had that great shot against Sunderland, comes off the bar.
With the footage of who was the player
I can't remember the players now. The players just like the Sunderland player go, wow, what a shot. And so he had something, and you know, I remember, you know, it was really bigged up the signing as well, wasn't it? It was like Chelsea are after him, Liverpool have nipped in, you know, he's this top talent, all of Europe are looking at him, we all got really excited, and then he's the forgotten man of Liverpool.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like it blows my mind when you put that he hasn't played since May 2015. It's 3 years ago.
It's absolutely wild.
Like, it's funny, isn't it? Because you can just speculate endlessly. What is it?
Yeah.
How bad must he be in training? Do you know what I mean?
I know.
Because you think Klopp's the type of manager who, like, look at Moreno. We all thought he'd been bombed, and then Klopp starts making noises of how good he is in training, and he's back in it. He's our first choice left back. And Markovic is just slowly, he's not even like sort of getting closer to the squad. He's going further away from it.
I mean, what happens? Do they play Piggy in the middle, and he just stands in the middle going, nah?
I was just going to say to you, what do you reckon it is? What's your theory?
I can't get. I mean, he played against Tranmere, didn't he, in one of the pre-season games? And then even then in the pre-season, he got bombed.
Yeah.
It was like as though. Yeah. But we've never heard a story about something happening, or there being an argument, or there being a question mark around that. I mean, that might just be because they want to sell him. But yeah, normally these things get out, don't they? I mean, you know, with all the Balotelli nonsense and all that, you heard all kinds of stories about what he was up to, buying phones and disappearing and, you know, scoring an own goal on purpose in training and all this sort of stuff. There doesn't seem to be any of that around Markovic, but it does seem that he's doing something wrong. Maybe he used the manager's bog or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think maybe he's just a dead timid character, and that's probably the worst thing you can be with Klopp. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you better being like at least in his vision. I can imagine like he just doesn't notice him.
But even then, though, you kind of think, like, you know, let's put it into the context of, say, a normal job or whatever, which we always do, don't we? We like that one.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're in a normal job and you were sort of thinking, well, you know, the boss is ignoring me and doesn't think I'm any good, when you go home and having your tea and that, you'd be thinking, well, I'll do something different. I'll get in his eye in the way that he wants me to and see if I can push on. Just to sort of sit around going, I'm all right.
Yeah, well, you've listed here some of the, and there's some interesting points on this, because you've mentioned his loan spells, and I remember seeing him at Hull, and he looked all right.
Yeah,
he had some good games. That maybe the manager put some faith in him, and he liked that. So you'd think someone would want him and someone would take him, but the other side of that is something I've referenced in the past. I remember Gerrard saying years ago, if you've played for Liverpool's first team, and he's usually talking about kids in this instance, but it applies to everyone. If you play for Liverpool's first team and then you drop out of it and go somewhere else, you've got to be the best player. If you drop into the reserves, you've got to be the best player. Like if Robbie Fowler came into the first team, then went back to the reserves, he'd score 5 in a game to just show he's way too good for that level. And my concern with someone like Markovic is, he's been at Fenerbahce, and I thought, do you know what, he'll probably do all right there. He went to Sporting Lisbon, he should be comfortable there, didn't pull up any trees, do you know what I mean? So then you start thinking, well, what's this? And we talked off air about, this is on the flip side of wanting us to buy Lamar or whatever who I'd never heard of before last year, and I was saying about Alisson, the goalkeeper, who I'd never heard of until 3 weeks ago. Now I'm desperate for us to sign him.
You've watched the YouTubes?
I haven't even watched any YouTubes.
You haven't done the YouTube?
No, Adam Melia
You're just excited?
Adam Melia told me about him in the pub after the Everton win, and I was like, sound, let's have him.
Let's get him.
So since then, like when people go to me, what keeper do you think we should buy? I go, Alisson, and I talk about him like I know him dead well. I'm like, I've never seen him.
It's what you do though, and it's what footy fans do. You know, someone came in here on Monday and was like, hey, have you seen that thing? Alisson skinned a forward who ran at him, and then he assisted the goal as well. And I was thinking, all right, yeah, Tom, but like if Mignolet skinned the forward, we'd all be like, what's he doing? He took a risk, get in goal, just get on your line. So yeah, we do shift the goalpost accordingly, but you know, footy fans, biggest hypocrites in the world. All right, well, we're going to be back in a minute. We're going to take a look at today's papers. All right, the papers then, and loads and loads of stuff. I'm sure you've all seen this. The Daily Mail describes it as Neville fiasco. Basically gets the women's England's job. And then tweets emerge of him coming across as a bit of a bell about women. And then there's a huge outcry, as there is. And now people are saying, you know, should he be in the job after tweeting things like this? It's all turned into a bit of a PR disaster. Neville's apologised. He's going to keep the job. Everyone's having the say on it. We're going to have our say on it a little bit as well. My one first off, Kopi, on this is that my opinion is I'm sure Neville's capable of coaching any football side, certainly more than I am. But what I find bizarre about it is that he's got no experience whatsoever in the women's game. And now I'm not saying that's a problem because of gender. I'm saying it's a problem because he doesn't know the players. He hasn't watched the leagues. He hasn't watched those players on a regular basis. So how can he know? Whereas if you've got a coach who's worked in the women's game week in, week out, knows the players, knows who's good, knows who's bad, knows what tactics work, all that sort of stuff, there's no bedding in period. They just know it. And I think the same would apply to even, you know, any professional league, the men's league, whatever you want. If you took a fella from, say, the Evo Stick League and throw him into League One and say, go ahead then, manage that club. Of course there are going to be transferable skills, but at the same time he just won't know the league. He won't know, you know, the quality of every squad. And okay, you can learn that over a period of time, but that's my issue with the appointment. Was there not a coach, male or female, that just knows the women's game better than Phil Neville?
Yeah, well, I started laughing then because you said, like, Joey, some tweets have been found where he sounds like a bell about women, but you could stop that sentence as a bell, couldn't you? Yeah. My big issue with Phil Neville, like, is not that he doesn't know about the women's game, he doesn't know about the game. Like, when I watch him as a pundit, I just think he's talking nonsense. Like, to big up what we do here, like, there are certain pundits on TV, Carragher and Neville, and I saw Peter Schmeichel the other week and Slaven Bilic, and
really
when they're talking about stuff, you're like, yeah, this is insightful, I like this. And then there's a whole spectrum of other pundits, and it ends with Phil Neville, basically. He just talks absolute nonsense about the game, and I can understand completely all your points. Yeah, of course, he doesn't know anything about the women's game. But if he was appointed manager of a championship club, I'd expect them to say, why is he being appointed our manager? He's crap. What's he ever done?
Well, yeah,
in the world of management,
he's been an assistant, hasn't he? He's knocked round on benches and stuff like that, but he hasn't been this great leader, this great orator. He hasn't, you know, like you say. I mean, I think most people have cringed quite a lot at some of the stuff. I keep going to say Gary's good, Phil isn't. I mean, the tweets, if you haven't seen them, someone's gone all the way back to like July 2011 to find some of these, by the way. Relax, I'm back, chilled, just battered the wife, feel better now! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Nice one, Phil. Another one, January the 19th, 2012, 8:04 a.m. Morning, men. Couple of hours cricket before work sets me up nicely for the day. And then a few minutes later, when I said morning, men, I thought the women would have been busy preparing breakfast, getting kids ready, making the beds. Sorry. Morning, women. And then on December the 3rd, 2012, he's atting his sister Tracy. He says, you women have always wanted equality until it comes to paying the bills. Hashtag hypocrites. Well done, Phil. Well done, lad. I've noticed as well, I'm not going to name names, but lots of people seem to be deleting all the tweets right now. You know, including some people in this parish, and I'm just wondering what's going on. Why they've got to do that.
Do you know when you read out those tweets, what it comes across to me as is, when like your mum or like my auntie did this, they go on Facebook for the first time and they don't understand the difference between sending private messages to people and just like sending a tweet out that everyone can see. Like that last one to his sister. I think there's a danger in the world now for everyone to explode about the wrong things. I've cracked jokes like that to my sister over the years, do you know what I mean? I might not do it on Twitter so everyone else can see it. And me and my mate have been saying about this lately, like most jokes can be offensive to somebody, depending on how you read them. That comes across to me as like, you know, mate, if you want to joke like that with your sister and she gets it and it's a joke and you're not really sexist and all the rest of it, don't put it on Twitter. Do you know what I mean? That's part of it. But I think generally speaking about the whole affair, and I've seen quite a few sort of serious female football commentators talking about this, and this is absolutely right for me. Don't get everyone be carried away by this red herring of these tweets are the main point of why he shouldn't have this job.
Exactly, yeah, that's not the thing.
He shouldn't have this job because he couldn't possibly have been the best candidate. So I saw a statement, and I think it might have been from Kick It Out to the FA saying, we want to see what process you went through to appoint him.
Well, they started to put a little bit of that out there, so there's an idea that there was a field of candidates, but then the stories sort of that it reached the point where they almost were told, well, you're not in the running, and our Phil's going to get it, until they all just withdrew, and then he then ends up holding the job, and it does seem a bit.
I think it's a bit like, I mean, Ryan Giggs' appointment in the Mail game. Do you know what I mean? There's still, and I think this is in society, it's still an issue. There's still a massive element of the FA and different organisations of being sort of old boys clubs. And this strikes everyone, I think, as a bit of an old boys club appointment.
Feels a bit that way.
We'll look after our lad here, and it was the same with Giggs. Do you know, when that video came out of Giggs, that was literally how I pictured Giggs giving team talks. I could understand why no one would give him a job. So for him to get the Welsh manager's job when that's what he's like, imagine asking the United players in that room that day.
Mr. Monotone trying to get you going and get your blood pumping for a match. Nah, you're all right. The next one then, a lighter one, hilarious. Leeds United's new badge, or is it Gaviscon? Should be able to see that. Can they see that, boys? Is it on there? Yeah. So what's happened is they come up with this badge. By common consensus, it's awful. And basically Leeds United fans kicked off about it. They immediately come up with a petition with more than 67,000 signatures on it, which is amazing. Fair play to them there. And there's some great comments around it as well. I mean, the club have tried to sort of defend themselves on this and say, you know, we did engage with fans and all this. They claim that they've engaged with 10,000 fans. But of course, when you make these claims, you will always have other fans who'll go and try and find some of them, and it turns out that no one can find any of these 10,000 fans. Many fans claim the new design bore a striking resemblance to the label on indigestion medication Gaviscon. Match of the Day host Gary Lineker tweeted, "It gives me heartburn just looking at it." Then the idea around these 10,000 supporters, Leeds fanzine, big square ball. I think we've spoken to them in the past. We've certainly been at some FSF awards with them in the past. They tweeted, it's a big glossy exercise in Brandon, done by a consultant in Shoreditch. We need to go for a soya milk latte and a lie down. I mean, the whole thing has just turned into a huge piss take. It's literally the back page of the Mirror there. It's in all the other newspapers as well. I seen a fella this morning on the telly, looking very hot, sweaty, red-faced, greasy-haired, and he was basically saying, we didn't think this was going to be the reaction, and it won't be the badge. We're going to speak to the fans.
Have they pulled it already?
They've pulled it, and they're going to go back, and they're going to think again.
Fantastic.
It's a great story, though.
I love it, and I think for our purposes, it's nice to know that I like to see when other clubs are making a massive hash of something, do you know what I mean? Like my brother-in-law's who's a Blue Nose, he went to me last night at Liverpool advertising for a head of PR or PR manager or something, and he went, job for you. And I went, I couldn't think about like a worse job to do. Can you imagine the abuse you'd get?
I know.
And things like this it sums up how we all just assume that the people running football clubs are like good business people or know what they're doing. It's just a joke, isn't it? Like if any company did that, I'd be like, what are you doing?
I know.
What are you doing? Unless they have got some grand plan to partner with Gaviscon and it's going to like give them the funds to get in the Premier League.
Never rule those things out, mate.
Absolutely.
Footy never fails to amaze. Last one, quick one. Won't go long on this because we've been having a dig at Arsenal quite regularly on here. They did reach a cup final last night, so fair play to them. They're in the League Cup final. Another opportunity for Wenger to win a cup. He hasn't won that one actually. But Brian Reid in the Mirror, as I always say, good writer Brian, and always worth a read. He's just picked up on the idea that Wenger said, I cannot understand anyone wanting to leave Arsenal. Brian points out that they pay him £9 million a year, that it's the world's 6th highest income generating club, and that they also charge the highest ticket prices on earth, basically. So to not get why world-class players offered mind-boggling wages might want to go to a club that challenges for titles when you haven't won the league for 14 years is, says Brian, delusional. And he goes on to say, Sanchez, for all the talk that Sanchez didn't put it in for Arsenal, he says the former Barcelona man scored 80 goals and provided 41 assists in 165 games at Arsenal, yet he never finished within 10 points of the title winners and never made it past the last 16 of the Champions League. I mean, Wenger's been having a bit of a pop. I know it was mentioned on yesterday's video about, how Arsenal are perceived. He thinks other clubs get a free pass versus them. I mean, the way Brian's put it there is quite damning, isn't it? For the resource they've got, for the fact that they're London as well, which you think always helps to lure certain players. We've struggled with that at times because, foreign players perhaps don't want to come to Liverpool over London. So with all these advantages, they should be doing better than they're doing, shouldn't they? Yeah,
that's the point that Brian makes there about Sanchez's record. I would never have guessed that. So he's never finished within 10 points of the league winners. That's terrible, that, isn't it? And to never get past the last 16 of the Champions League in that time, that's awful. That's like we'll probably do that this season. It's our first season back. Do you know what I mean? So if you're Sanchez, you must be looking at that thinking, what's the point? Yeah. And I think as well, the other side of it that we've touched on other shows, I think, and stuff is it sort of shows how belittled the cup competitions have become over the years, because he has won 3 FA Cups in recent years and he might win a League Cup, but it's not enough really, is it? I think that's the point. And on the point about the advantages they've got, I think that's a more damning indictment of them, because I know that there've been issues with Liverpool when our owners clearly like their owners' model of doing things, and they've had to learn over time that it just doesn't work the same way. Do you know what I mean? You can't knock down Anfield and build a load of Bosch flats that you can sell for millions of pounds. That just doesn't happen. Whereas, have you ever been down and seen the flats in Highbury? Like, they made millions off that, and it's all that sort of stuff where I think
Emirates as well has just got a whole floor, and apparently it's like circles of hell. Well, that's not how they market it, but the closer you get to the centre, the more expensive your tables are. But honestly, it's absolutely huge. If you haven't been down there, you can see it when you're walking up. It's just a floor of hospitality that they're charging an absolute fortune for. Yeah. And again, Liverpool can't do that. There just isn't the demand for it. Yeah,
and the same with ticket prices. Well, look what happened to our owners when they tried to charge 70 quid for the ticket, and rightly so. But look at Arsenal. They can effectively charge what they want because they're in one of the most affluent areas of London. So yeah, I think Brian's absolutely right. The word delusional is the right one, isn't it? Like it's a bit like the Rodgers thing, I think. At the time I was like, maybe Joe Rodgers should be given more time. But in hindsight, it's like there was a line in the sand there, a natural line in the sand for Wenger to walk away with his head held high and for them to put in place a new plan. But clearly, and this is a club thing again, they haven't planned for it.
No.
And he's so integral to everything they do, he couldn't just leave. Because I've heard reports, I think we might have spoken about this, where people who work at the club say, look, even if I want to change a light bulb or something, I have to ask Wenger.
Yeah, Sam, who's behind the camera, has told us that, because he's done some work, not today, but normally behind the camera, Arsenal fan. He's waved at you a few times if you regularly watch. He's heard that Wenger's involved in everything, top to bottom. He's one of those, total control freak basically. And so the succession plan on Arsenal just hasn't been there. Maybe it is now, who knows? But it's always nice to have a laugh at another club, isn't it? So let's finish on that note. On the Anfield app today, there is a gutter show. Again, going through all the transfers, ins and outs. Are we going to do any business? They will discuss it on the Gutter Show. There's a European show out there as well today. The Friday show looking at all the big games this weekend. And also a show for the big question, which I hosted, and we had a chat about Anfield's atmosphere. People are always talking about that. Is it good? Is it bad? What can be done? Why has it changed? All that sort of stuff. We got into all of that over an hour. It's already getting really good feedback. If you want to have a listen to that one and you don't subscribe, it's theanfieldapp.com/subscribe. Get involved, give it a listen, let me know what you think. We'll be back tomorrow with a Talking Reds. Thanks to Kopi.